Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parko here with Brian Galkey, and we are ACES53. And if you don't know who we are now, go back and watch a few episodes.
Don't you
And
know who
best
I
way
am?
what?
Don't you know who I am?
And the best way to support us here, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. It's how you can support us. We really appreciate it. We're gonna go. So on Tuesday, we went over a few different things on role playing, and then I kind of talked about going to your past clients that didn't go. I should say prospects that didn't go with you, and find out why they didn't go with you. Because I was talking to a real estate agent about some divorce attorneys, and he was telling me that the one that, huh?
Said you cut out there for a second. I don't know if it was you or me, but you went away for a moment.
I'm sorry. Which part did you not get?
We heard, and then we brought up, and then it cut out, and it said divorce attorneys.
That's probably your side, but I'm sure it's on both sides. But I'm just going to repeat it again.
Sure.
So the gentleman was talking to me. He wanted to get with more divorce attorneys because what's happening right now in our industry is there's only about 35% of existing home sales coming on the market, if you're even lucky, and that's only because of major life issues like divorces, deaths, those kind of things that come up, and you have to sell the home. And so I was explaining to him, well, don't you know somebody? And what I used to do is stalk them in, like, when I would go to work out at the gym, I would find out the person I wanted to talk to, find out when they show up there, and then somehow nonchalantly run into them and start a conversation with them and get to know them better. He goes, well, I have one guy, but he didn't use me on his last transaction. I said, well, maybe you should ask him why. You're trying to understand how to do better in your sales, and you'd like to know why he didn't use you, and just so you understand.
And that's the funny thing. A lot of people are like, well, I didn't get it, and they just move on. And the thing that a lot of people are taught in sales right off the bat is, oh, it's a numbers game. Well, it's a numbers game if you have a commodity that is basically somebody can go buy it from anyone else, and therefore you have that same leverage. But if you have a proprietary product, or you have a special solution or something else, or if you want to stand out, then you need to examine the no's. And that's one of the things. If you look at most people who are successful, they talk about they learn more from the failures, because when you fail, you pay attention. When you don't do that, then you don't have a choice. Sorry, I got distracted by the doorbell. When you succeed, then what happens is people just continue to move forward, but you only examine things when they don't go well.
Right. Well, it's like objections. We talked about that before. You need to have objections through the sales process, so you understand you're actually selling and you have something going forward. That means they're still interested. They just are coming up with reasons not to buy because of some reason. Nobody wants to make a decision unless it's out of pain or pleasure. And so most people these days will wait because until the pain's so great.
Well, and you talked about this before, the difference of your talk of no. So I don't know if you want to bring that up for people who haven't seen the previous episodes, but you did
talk about how to get through no, getting past no, KNOW.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, today was about postponing, but I'll do that real quick. But thank you for giving me that little opportunity to get on my stage here.
Yeah.
So I came up with this thing for years in sales. People kept saying people didn't buy because they just didn't know. And they were like KNOW, and they'd say it. And I always thought it was stupid. Okay, not stupid, but just ridiculous the way they would do it. Right. And then when I did a presentation, not my best speaking event, but when I was talking about, and I was like, okay, what is no? Knowledge needed to overcome waiting. And that's what you need to get to for people. It's not just knowledge, but you need to find out what's holding them back and why they're waiting and not making a decision. And you need to get to that point. And that's what we talk about here. We talk about how to get to that. Understanding objections, understanding, listening, because most people talk way too much.
Yes. And don't listen nearly enough. Right. It's the show up and throw up type scenario.
Right. And we talked about it before. I don't care how hungry you are. You do not show that you're hungry. You need to, you need to act like you got so much business. It doesn't matter if you have this sale or not.
Well, neediness is a repellent. I don't care if you're talking personally, professionally, neediness. Nobody likes to be around neediness. And when people can smell it on you, they're just like, oh, okay, we'll see you later on.
Right. You really need this really bad. Well, yes, that is great, but you never show that, or you don't even, with my agents, I knew I forgot to do something. even if I was hurting and I need money, I'm not going to let them know that I'm not doing as great as they think I am. I'm not going to tell them that. I want them to think that I don't need their business. I want their business. I'm just getting rid of the sound over here, so ignore me for a second.
Sure. Oh, I can ignore you all the time. Well, so while you're doing that, I'll bump into the
next
banner, right? And so what is a postmortem? And it is an opportunity to basically go back and look at not just who didn't go with you, but sometimes when you win, you need to examine it just as well. So we tend to think of postmortem as like an autopsy, right? Why did the person die? And that's a mistake, because really, if you have a highly successful deal, you should examine that as well and say, what all went right to do it? And so what kind of led us into this today on Thursday is, like you mentioned on Tuesday, is when you ask the person, why didn't they go through? They're like, oh, I don't know. And a lot of people like to avoid instead of seeing this as an opportunity to learn. And the important part about that is you can learn from your wins and you can learn from your losses, but you tend to learn more from your losses because, again, you pay more attention to what you didn't do right. And so what do most people do is they basically...
I want to add to that.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So one of the things I say, our greatest accomplishments come from our greatest defeats, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing you're talking about here. And that's why I started the Inner Edison podcast. It's kind of on a hold again. It's like, I finally found how I want to do it, but then it's like, okay, now I'm a Rotary president and I have all this other stuff. And now I've got other stuff, and, so it's just really hard to do all that stuff.
Do we kiss the ring? How does it work?
No, none of the above. It's just, I'm a servant. I'm just there it's their meeting. I'm just there to oversee it.
Sure.
It's for you.
It's for
you, the Rotarian.
That's right.
And that's another thing. I'll make sure you understand. Whenever you're talking to anybody, you're talking to that person.
Not the listener.
Not the listener. Not Rotarians, not for any of those, whatever it is, it's you, period. Mm-hmm. And that's how you should do your presentation. Everything about it should be to that person. And I know it sounds normal, but for most of us, we're so used to, I didn't know when I first got on radio, I said listeners, and they're like, they're not listeners. And then what do I call them? They're listening. They're actively listening to me.
Right.
And they're like, you just say you. Because if you say listeners, they're like, he's talking about somebody else, not me.
If you read through most books, right, they're written,
I know we're kind of off the subject, but anyway.
Yeah, no, it's fine, because it's kind of what we're talking about. Books are written with to say, well, when you take action, when you do this, because then when you're reading, you're thinking, he's talking to me, or she's talking to me, right? And so
funny how you put he first instead of she.
I know. Well, I like 2 letters instead of 3. Then you move on, and what somebody actually suggests is when you find powerful statements in a book, you change it to I. So then you're taking ownership of it versus somebody talking to you about it. And there's several speakers out there who talk about the importance of, when you're speaking, you talk about you, me, I. What are the different ways that you use the phrases? So like you said, you're speaking to a lot of people, but then the me and the I is taking ownership of something when you want, instead of projecting it on someone else. So anywho, back to what we were talking about. What's the first step?
You're so funny. You make a statement that's important, and then you go, oh, anywho, yeah, no big deal.
I know we were trying to keep today a little bit shorter. So
no, but it doesn't matter what we're trying to do. That's whatever we're trying to do, we're supposed to try to do with us and keep it to us.
Yes.
Not tell everybody, oh, we're not important. We're just going to get out of here real quick.
Yeah. Well, sometimes
I just find that a lot of people prefer 20 to 30 minutes max. And better, more edited out content is better if you're just talking about nothing.
Yes, which sometimes we do, but today we actually have a concept.
We always have a concept. It just matters if we stay on it.
Right. The beginning step number 1 is you have to look, what was the entire opportunity, right? So it's not just, oh, I lost the deal. What was the opportunity? How big was it? How small was it? Was it a single deal, multiple deals, you name it? So you have to first start with, what was the actual event that you're going to dissect or do the postmortem on? And then what you have to look at is, what were all the steps that were involved with it? So is it something you did over email? Did you do it over text? Was it over your marketing? How did you walk the customer through the entire sales cycle? So for you, it's a little bit different, right? A lot of your stuff is referrals. And then
what's that? So 50% of my business is through the radio show.
Right.
And then the other part of it is through referrals. I'd say probably 25 to 30% is referrals. And then other people who just, come in, find us through the web or somewhere else.
Or through getedsbook.com.
Yeah, that too. But what's funny is, I don't know if it's funny. I guess I shouldn't say that, but I've been doing the radio show since 2018, and I was at 2 separate things when they were installing my new internet. And then also when I was at last weekend at a Rotary event, I was talking to somebody out of Antique, and they're like, "Oh, you do the Real Estate Jerky Show." You know what I mean? And then when I was getting my internet installed, the guy installing, he overheard me talking to the other guy about doing the radio. And he goes, "I was wondering if it was you that you were the Ed Parco." I was like, who else Ed Parco's out there?
It's not like you were Steve Smith. It's a pretty unique name.
Right. But it's amazing how much people have heard us in our show, and how much, they say there's 51 to 71,000 people listen to the radio station weekly. So you just never know who's listening.
And that's such an interesting world for me. I haven't listened to live radio in 5 years. I mean, unless I'm in a rental car that my phone won't connect to, right. I listen to Audible, I listen to podcasts. So it's interesting to me that radio is still such a
talk radio on conservative radio station. Talk radio is huge. It is so huge. You can't believe how big it is.
And what surprises me about that is with the invent of podcast, I assume people go, "Oh, well, I know exactly who I like to follow, like Joe Rogan or whoever." I just picked a random name, right? And it seems like people can feed off that content so much. It really surprised me to know how big of an audience it was.
Yeah, but you can take that radio show, then put it to a podcast, and you have a whole new listener group that wouldn't normally be listening to it in the first place. And that's what we do. And so not only do you have that airwaves of 51, you also have the podcast afterwards. And then we do with the same co-host, him and I do 5 lives a week just from that at 8:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
you wonder why I have no time.
Work.
Yeah, that's why people wonder I have no time to do anything. Go ahead. That was just a point of doing stuff. And one thing so someone told me, when you're about ready to quit is when people are starting to listen.
Yes.
So I understand that. Yeah.
The book 3 Feet from Gold, right? There's so many different people who talk about people who gave up too soon. They were so close to it. I was listening to a podcast, or kind of like a mastermind yesterday, and one of the guys, James Dentley. So he has the Absolute Motivation YouTube channel. The guy was working in a factory a year ago, and now he's getting big money to be on stages. And he lost his leg as a kid, and he was told, "Oh, you're a cripple," by his parents and all these things. But he almost gave up. And then he ended up attending Secret Knock and meeting additional people. And all of a sudden he went from literally quitting his job, working in the factory, to now being asked to speak at churches and places all over the US as a speaker. And now it helps. He's got a deep voice like you, but he's so full of passion and everything else. But he almost gave up several times. That's what he talked about. After
gave up several times of talking and trying to be on speaker, or give up just in life,
trying to do anything other than being a factory worker. Yeah. Because he started the YouTube channel. And then at times he was like, "Is it worth it?" No, I should just stick with being a factory worker. Or he thought, he started the speaking stuff, and he talked about he did it for free. And then he'd do it for $2,000, then $2,500, then $5,000, then, the money kept rolling up higher. But he did talk about how many times he thought about giving up and just saying, I'll never be anything other than an employee. So it was a good kind of follow up to what you were talking about there.
And he does have something else that a lot of people don't have.
What's that?
Something that happened to him in life that.
True. Yeah. He lost a leg as a kid, and
I'm not saying you need to lose a leg to become important. I'm just saying you have a story that people want to hear, how you overcame certain things. You need to have
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you need to figure out your story so that that's what you push, and people will get to understand who you are.
And that's what he brought up yesterday, is a lot of people come up to him and go, "Well, I haven't lost a limb. I haven't." He's like, "Yeah, but have you been through things? Have you gone through bankruptcy? Have you?" And he started listing out all the things that people should pay attention to, because we're raised in a really weird world right now where, and you've brought this up with your Inner Edison podcast, people don't want to talk about their failures as much because we're taught, social media only show the good stuff, right? Only show everything that makes it look like my life is the best life out there. But people are interested in how you got to where you are, because if they see what you've been able to overcome, then they're more interested and they think it's possible for them.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's why I liked that show and when I did it. But then people just, and it's like, okay, I need people to tell. And I interviewed a guy a couple weeks ago, and I was like, this is what I've been looking for 2.5 years. This is exactly how I want to do it. I just need to make more money so I can get people to do stuff for me.
Yes. Well, that'll come back, right? That'll come back.
It's coming. Actually, it's weird. Things will turn around, and right when you're about ready to give up, and things will turn around.
Yes. Now, the only advice that you shouldn't take that in is when you're at the casino of if you've run out of money, maybe you should stop for a while.
Yeah. Don't go get a line of credit.
Don't get a line of credit. Don't find a gangster who will give you a hard money loan. And
don't sell your title to your car.
That's right. Or hawk a wedding ring if you have one. Little things like that. Sometimes,
unless you don't have that person anymore, then go hawk that wedding ring.
That's true, but it's weird if you're carrying it around. But then again, it worked in the movie, right? Right.
I think it was Federal Express or one of them didn't have payroll, went to the casinos and got their payroll.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, it was, I forget which one of the two one of those two that the owner's like, I was at the point where I didn't have payroll, so I went and gambled and I got payroll.
That's awesome.
Because I mean, most of the people don't understand how hard it is until you can't make payroll or you can't do this, and how do you overcome it? How do you do that? And I think that's what's setting up a lot of our kids. And I know we're totally off subject, but kids these days, or I should say not really kids these days, some of them are different, but from definitely 23 through 29, 30, they never had it hard. And you're setting them up to not understand how that's okay. That makes you who you are. And you need to overcome it to do something. Nothing good is easy.
I saw a meme yesterday. It said, sometimes I'm tempted to go drop my kids off in 1985 and see how long they'd survive, which is true. Look, the big problem is we had growing up, and I'll speak for me. Yes, there were movie stars. Yes, there were athletes, but people didn't look up and think, oh, I have to have all these things that what they see on social media. And they think, oh, if I don't have those things, there's something wrong with me. We knew there was Lifestyles Rich and Famous with Robin Leach.
Yeah,
there was, the Oscars. There was, sometimes you saw people with mansions, but now you're constantly being shown something somebody has that you may potentially want. And then a lot of people think, well, why don't I have it? Instead of realizing that's all for show. It's no different than a TV show, right? You don't see the production behind the scenes. You see what they want you to see. But a lot of people don't get that, and especially kids. This is kind of related and kind of not. My 6-year-old doesn't understand when you go to the movies why we can't just skip the previews before the movie starts. So every time we go to the movies, I don't like this, skip it. Like, no, you can't. We're at a movie theater. We don't get to choose, but she's grown up with Apple TV and an iPad. And, so the level of, there's two sides to this. One, they get everything they want on demand. Number two, and the whole reason why like my courses and speaking is taking off is because kids live in the world of perfection. We used to take a picture. You'd have to send it to Kodak, hope it didn't suck when you got it back a week later. Now, even my little 6-year-old will go, let me see the picture, delete it. I don't like it. You know about it.
Sounds like you got a demanding 6-year-old.
The time she is. And
that's the problem with one child.
Yes. Well, even beyond that,
I'm just saying one child usually, because it gets so much attention, they're the most demanding. If they're thrown in with 5 kids, it's not the same.
True. If it's 2 to 3, it seems like there's still that competition because now I'm trying to figure out who's the parent's favorite. But I think we get past 3.
It's always the baby.
Yeah. Hey, you shut up. I'm the oldest.
Exactly. It's always the baby. I'm just saying that. And I'm not a baby. I was a middle.
Yeah.
A middle, and then I became the older. It's a long story. But it's the baby's always the favorite. The last one to be in the house, the last one here. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing with my wife. It's like, he's not. Yes, he is. He's
Yes, he is. We just don't tell the other kids that.
They know.
Subconsciously, we all know. But so to finish that off, so they grow up with the perfect email, the perfect text message, all these things. And
they don't grow up with perfect email. They don't get email anymore. Text message.
Well, I mean, they can craft it. They don't have to do things live like we're doing here, right? Just having a conversation live. They do everything behind a keyboard, behind a cell phone. taking a picture, texting, emailing, gives them time to craft and think through things. And that's why when they get into social environments, they're like, oh shit, what do I do? I don't know. Hold on. Because they can sit there and craft things in their mind and backspace and delete and change words, but they don't know how to interact with people face to face. It's a rarity with them right now. So anywho,
and you're right, but that's important, because that's kind of what we're talking about. So as crafty as those people are and able to craft, you need to, as much as they look at and can adjust and change, that's the same thing you need to do with your sales process. Same thing you need with your customers and people you've lost, that you find out why they didn't go with you, go back through, re-examine the whole process. Maybe there's something else that you need to do differently. You always, I don't care if you, like you said, look at the wins, look at the losses, look at the in-betweens, and see where you can do better, because in this environment where AI is taking over so many things, eventually people are going to go, I don't even want to talk to AI. I want to talk to an actual person. I think we're going to go completely opposite. AI is going to take over to a certain point, and then people are going to go, okay, this is great to get information, but I really want to talk to a human.
We're going to go
unless it's for food.
Right. We're going to go through the modern phone tree, right? So if you try calling a company, what are you trying to do? Figure out, how can I get to a live person as soon as possible? Start just hitting numbers. And that's why there's entire websites of how to bypass all the automated responses.
Zero.
It's not always zero. That's what's interesting. I can't remember the name of the website. If I find it, I'll say.
How about, you bypass it is go to a different company who actually answers their phone.
That's true too.
That's what I do, because we answer our phone and they're like, I go, so why did you go with us? You answered your phone. Everybody else didn't. Yeah.
There was a competitor that used to go in and do demonstrations. And what they say is, we will always pick up the phone within 3 rings. And they would tell people, go call from your cell phones. And it worked. And then the large company that I bought them, and all of a sudden that went away. So sometimes smaller is better, right? But with what we're talking about, go and talk to the customer. Don't just assume, oh, they suck, they didn't have the money, they just didn't like us. Maybe you did something wrong. And the reason we bring that up is, you take what you learn in the post-mortem, and then you add it and you change it to your script, which we were talking about. A lot of millennials don't have the ability to speak on the fly. Well, that's why there's scripts, or SOPs, standard operating procedures. So when you go back and you examine what you did right and what you did wrong, then you can help improve the process for the next person, right? So basically, here, extract the lessons that you can learn.
What are the lessons I could have learned?
It's different for every sales company, right? But there's been little things that when we've gone back and done postmortems. Now, it depends on what industry you're in. Some people are afraid to tell you why you weren't the winner for fear of being sued. It's kind of like, can you call a previous employer? They can't even say if they fired you or not anymore. The only answer that they'll say is, would you rehire the person? Yes or no? And there are some customers who aren't going to want to talk to you about why you didn't win, because they're worried that you're trying to build a lawsuit or a case or something else. But you can always ask. And it doesn't have to be as soon as you lose. You can go and ask 6 months later. And why do you ask? 2 reasons: to learn, right? Then you can find out how happy are they with who they went with instead of you. So there is a benefit to delaying when you go and do these postmortems versus doing it as soon as you lose something.
And it also depends on your industry. Totally 2 different industries. In my industry, real estate industry, you're not going to get sued asking them why they didn't go with them. They might not even return your phone call, but that's beside the point. Right. But I mean, it's like, it just depends on why people. I had a client who, we know when someone runs your credit, it automatically sends out something, hey, you might be doing blah blah, and he's like, oh, might have to be moving to Fresno and all this stuff, and he went through this whole process, and so we actually talked. And he's like, well, this kid did this, and, you're number 2 ready, in case something happens. And I'm like, I'm not number 2. If you don't want to work with me, I don't want to work with you. No offense, but I'm not here just in case something happens. If you want it done right, you come to me. And I'm not saying this other person, but they were younger and they were this. The issue with that one was when we did that person's refinance, he wasn't making as much money as what his new job's going to be right now. And so he had all this different things that was very much affecting his income, but they don't see that. And you try to explain to them why you're going through this and why it's tougher and why we need this or this or this. but they think they know better than you. And they think that they've done this before and it's the same way, and things are always different. And what I'm getting at is sometimes it's okay to lose somebody because they're not the client you want to have anyway.
Sure.
I guess, did that come out okay?
Yeah, no, it did. Okay. In a similar vein, but on the opposite side of the coin, when we were bidding on houses, we found this house that we really wanted. It was in the historic neighborhood and everything else. When we turned in our offer, they said, "Oh, we've already accepted an offer." We said, "No problem. Are you interested in having a backup offer?" And what happened? The first one fell through because they didn't understand what's involved with a historic house and getting a loan and the HOA and all this kind of stuff that goes along with it. So sometimes when people think I'm not first, or I didn't get it, I didn't win, there's no harm in making a second offer on something.
Right.
And
I get that on a house.
Yep.
But it's different in the mortgage industry. You can only have one mortgage going at a time. Yes, right. Things fall out, and then people call me and they're like, "Hey, we told them to go with you originally, but they didn't know you. Now, can you help us?" Yes, no problem. Mm-hmm. But you can't make it about something. If somebody's not happy with the service we provided originally, mm-hmm. and it's never their fault, it's right. always your fault, no matter what. That's just the type of person they are. They never take responsibility for you're going to hit your head against the wall. My wife's like, "You swore you'd never do another transaction for them." Yeah. And it's like, I've said that before. And well, how poor are we this month?
Exactly. See those nice things that you want.
But it's just so important to explain to these people. Okay, you understand. I know you think it's us, but in reality, unfortunately, it's your situation that you're in. Right. It's not us. It's not the industry. It's everybody has a high FICO score now. Everybody can do this. If you don't have the income, there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
You can, though.
That's another reason to do a postmortem, right? Is what can you update in your frequently asked questions? We talked about sales scripts. We talked about standard operating procedures. But you can learn your frequently asked questions as well if you do a postmortem, right? Mm-hmm. That would help people later on. Or for you, postmortems would have been fantastic because sometimes when you wrote a book on achieving personal wealth through real estate, right?
No, it's financial freedom,
right?
Building personal wealth through home ownership.
Yes, like I said,
GetEdsBook.com. Nowhere close to what you said, but it was you got one or two of the words in there.
I said words, wealth, houses.
I'm still, waiting on your dad's review.
Oh, yes.
Anyway.
And now you made me lose my train of thought. By doing those postmortems, right, you knew other things to put in the book that other people didn't think about. Right. And that's
now those in my book, it wasn't postmortems. It was basically how we run into things over the last 20 years that other people and nobody thinks about it, right, and how to explain it. This is what we run into all the time. This is how you can fix it.
Right. But some of your knowledge comes from the fact that you were willing to do postmortems and learn as long as with the industry, what worked for you, what didn't work, and everything. It's kind of one of those things of where you are today is a combination of everything that happened to you in the past, good, bad, you name it. It's kind of the same thing. All the knowledge you have is because you were willing to examine the ones that you didn't get, not just focus on your wins.
Right. And also the things that happened to me in life. Right. Exactly. That's why I have no judgment, because if it happened to you, it's happened to me. So.
Exactly. Kind of what's the follow-up parts, what we mentioned before. Once you update your script and your standard operating procedures, aka SOPs, or you've changed your frequently asked questions or FAQs, are you going back to see, did it increase your success rate? Did what you learned and what you implemented have a positive effect on what you're doing going forward?
And what if it doesn't?
Then you keep doing postmortems. You go back.
You should do postmortem, period.
I agree.
All the time. So my biggest complaint is people say I talk over them.
I see. When I mentioned this on Tuesday, coming from a smaller company, we did postmortems on both what was successful and what we failed at. And then when you work for a larger company, you're just too busy with so many projects that you can't put that same level of detail, because when you want to put the team back together, they're off onto a different project. So it wasn't as possible as it was when we were smaller. You
can always do a survey, though.
True.
But the problem with surveys is you got to get people to do them.
Yes.
Because I just did one for my Rotary. I'm at like almost 50% of the Rotarians. Everyone's like, that's a good number.
Yeah.
No, I want like 100%.
Well, then just do 2 surveys at 50%. There you go.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, what I've done differently is I take whoever filled it out, I take them out of the next email,
Right.
and only email the people who didn't fill it out.
I like that.
So that way, not everybody's getting it. Dude, you hit so many times. No, I only hit you because you didn't fill it out.
Right.
Right. That's why you got 3. Go back in your thing. You got 3 things. I'm going to send it out one more time today, and then I'm going to have it on the tables tomorrow on a QR code so they can fill it out.
Makes sense.
Make it easy for people to do it. Well, I had one guy, only one complaint. That was pretty long. I wonder how your response rate. It's like, it's not that long. You can fill out what you want to fill out. You know, I need to know this information so I can make it better. I want to make Rotary great again together.
It's the together part that makes it good, right? That's what a lot of people
know. Marcia said, I go, I was worried about the word great because everybody was like, but I was at an event last weekend and everybody's at a Rotary event and they're like, we want to make, greatness. They're saying it was a great word. Everything was a great, right? And then they were talking about and fun. And that's my whole thing. Before I even knew what the Rotary was doing this year, that I had already thought that. Right. So it's all about having fun and let's make it great again. She's like, it's the again that is the issue.
Yeah. Well, look at the book, Good to Great, right? Who's that? Jim Collins?
I don't know, but I know the book.
Yeah, everybody knows it because that's the whole thing. We know good and then great. So it's funny how people latch on to just a word. Go, oh, that means you're this. It's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah,
it was a common word. I don't know if you know it's been around for a while.
And I've been saying great forever. Make it a great day.
How dare you put have a great day? Damn you. Who are you to judge my day?
That's right. I've had people say, don't tell me to have a great day.
Just change it to hope you have a great day.
Yeah.
Then like that way you're not telling what to do.
It's like hope floats. So does something else. But anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Hope. That's the other issue with Rotary is this year is hope. Let's get hope in the world. I'm like, hope in the world. That's just so like, let's have hope.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that as a great word for other people, it was just fine. It's just for me, I'm more direct.
You're of a nope, not a hope. All right.
I'm a no, KNOW.
That's right.
All right. Appreciate it. Anything else you want to do before we go?
Nope. See everybody next week.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate you. Best ways to support us, Brian and myself. Let's get that off there so people can see it. Is to go to our YouTube channel, ACES53, subscribe, go to my YouTube channel, which is Ed Parco. I'd appreciate the same thing. And you can go to Brian Galkey's, which is Subtle Skills. I know it's really hard. It's SUBTLE skills. Everybody's like, I can't spell that.
Yeah, no, I bought some of the misspellings and just redirected them too.
Anyway, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and thank you for being here, Brian.
Thanks, everybody.